Hey, what's up guys? This is MJ100K and today we're going to answer the question, what is the best year Buick Lucerne that you can buy? And that's going to be the 2006 to 2008 Buick Lucerne with the 3800 Series 3 engine. So here are three things I like about this car. Number one, from 06 to 08 it has the GM 3800 Series 3 engine. This engine has 197 horsepower and gets 17 miles per gallon city and 26 on the highway. The 3800 is one of the best engines GM ever made, and the Series 3 is the third revision of this engine. So they worked out a lot of the problems they found in the earlier versions. When properly maintained, it is known for high mileage. I found one on Car Gurus today that made it to over 300,000 miles. So there are two other engines that are available for the Buick Lucerne. In 2009, they started using the 3900 engine, and they also have a V8 Northstar engine. The 3900 is a little more complicated than the 3800 because it added variable valve control and active cylinder management. I usually like to try to stay away from first year technology in used cars, especially when it's more complicated than the previous year, because that's just more stuff that could break. I like to get used cars with engines that have been used for a long time where they've worked out all the problems. The other engine that they offer in this car is the 4.6 Northstar V8. Now look, I'm not a fan of the Northstar engine at all because I've actually had to work on them. That engine is really huge and is usually crammed into the engine bay and makes it harder to work on, which means your repair bills are going to be higher. They're also known for head gasket problems, which is a very expensive repair. So I'm definitely going to pass on that Northstar engine. Alright, the second thing I like about the Buick Lucerne is that it is very easy to work on. With the 3800 engine, there's a ton of space in the engine bay, so the repair bills are going to be cheaper. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, this is definitely a great vehicle for you to get some practice on. The tune-ups are super easy. You can actually get to the fuel pump from inside of the trunk, which means you don't have to drop the tank. So most do-it-yourselfers are going to be able to figure out how to do a fuel pump. So I put some links in the description for other YouTubers who made videos on how to replace the fuel pump to show you how easy it is. The third thing I like is the most likely previous owner. I tried to figure out and screen the previous owners from used cars because any used car that I suggest or anyone suggests on the internet that is known to be a good used car, it could turn into a terrible used car if you have a terrible previous owner. The reason why I am assuming that the first owner to this car is going to be a good owner is because the average age of Buick owners in general is over 60 years old. So that is the oldest age for any non-luxury brand. I mean, let's be honest, this is definitely a grandpa, grandmom car. But if you're just looking for transportation, something that's going to get you where you need to go from A to B reliably and comfortably, this is definitely a car for you. Actually, this one is a little bit above just basic transportation. It's in an area where it's almost luxury. It's like a semi-luxury car. The reason why I like grandpa cars is because grandpas take care of their car. In general, older people take care of their cars better than younger people. I mean, it's just what I've noticed. I mean, definitely grandpa took care of his car. You know how I know that? Because grandpa takes care of himself. That is how he got to be called grandpa.
You want some of this? Boy, I want a lot of that. Boy. Look at your boy. Getting ready to take you down, boy. Getting ready to take you down, boy. Getting ready to take you down. Look at your boy.
If you don't take care of yourself, you are probably not going to get old enough to enjoy a car like this. But one thing you have to watch out for is you don't want to be the third owner of this car. But listen, I'm telling you, when I lived in Philly, a lot of people had cars like this, but they were young guys. They would get them after grandpa had them. And a lot of times they would wreck them. They would put rims on them and tinted windows and giant stereos in them and mess them all up and not take care of them. Try to get one that's only had one owner. So then you're more likely to get a grandpa car and not a young bull car. But if you want more tips on how exactly I try to screen the previous owners, I have a video in the description where I share 3 secrets on how to do this. I'm like a mechanic CSI detective. I can figure this stuff out. And if you figure it out too, it's going to save you a lot of money. So those are the things I like about this car, but here are a couple of common problems. So look, every car is going to have some common problems. Even my 2004 Toyota Camry has some common problems, and that's one of the greatest cars ever made. But you know what? I think this Buick is one of the greatest cars ever made, but you just have to take care of it. So anyway, common problem number one is the fuel pump relay. So there's a TSB for this car for the fuel pump relay. It was sticking out a little bit too far, and it's under the back seat, so it was moving around and losing connection. You could try calling the GM dealer with the VIN number to see if the TSB has already been done. It's probably already been done by the time you have it, but make sure. And if not, you could probably take it into a GM dealership and they'll do it for you. Alright, so common issue number two is the S-belt tensioners. Now look, the old rule of thumb is that you can replace the S-belt without replacing the tensioner. That you will only replace the tensioner when it fails. But I have learned recently from some of the manufacturers is that the S-belt and the S-belt tensioner should be replaced at the same time. I know that this is not the general rule of thumb, but this is what the manufacturer of these parts are starting to say now. So I would go with them. Just take my advice. If you want to replace the S-belt, replace the tensioner. Older tensioners in older cars, they could go longer, but newer ones, they are made to fail together. So just replace them both at the same time. It's actually not that hard to replace the tensioner or the S-belt in this car. Common issue number three for this car, and this is actually for all 3800 engines, is the coolant bypass elbows. They have these little plastic coolant elbows, and they always seem to get brittle and they start to leak on this or any other 3800 engine. Alright, so it's not really that big of a deal. They're really easy to get to, and most do-it-yourselfers could easily do this repair in under an hour. I'll put a link in the description for a video of a guy replacing them, so you can see it's not really that hard. I'll tell you, when I was a mechanic once, I was doing a repair on a GM 3800 engine for these coolant elbows leaking, and somebody else pulled up to the garage where I was working at, and they were like, hey, can you look at this real quick? My car is leaking coolant. And I looked right to the same exact spot. It was the same exact part leaking on two cars at once. It was crazy. 99% of the time, I'm going to tell people to get their parts from the dealership, but this is one of the few exceptions. I'm going to recommend getting aftermarket coolant elbows for this car. They actually make aluminum versions of this part, and in my opinion, they will do better than the factory plastic elbow. Listen, if I was to get one of these cars, I would go ahead and replace those elbows as soon as I got it and put in the aluminum version. And then I would go ahead and flush the coolant too while I'm in there. Alright, so to wrap this video up, I really do like this car. When I went to go look at one of these to get a video for this, I was legit about to buy it. Like, I got two Toyota Camrys already, and I wanted to add this beautiful Grandpa Buick to my stable. As I've said before, make sure to get a mechanic to check the car out before you buy it and not after. Please, before is what's important here. So if you'd like to watch more videos of me talking about other good used car picks and other car topics in general, please consider subscribing. We would love to have you as part of the team. All right, well, thanks for tuning in and have a good one.